Uncover the hidden world of political campaigns in just 5 minutes. Join me, your host, David Washington, on Countertop Politics every Monday for exclusive campaign insights, tantalizing innuendo, and the secret sauce behind successful political campaigns. Don't miss out. Let's go. Hello, hello, hello. Here we are again. It's my favorite day of the week, and of course, my favorite program. It is Countertop Politics. I am your host, David Washington, and with me is a dear friend and business partner, Robert Montgomery. We've interviewed Robert before a couple of times, and Robert is here to talk about fundraising. Robert will be working with Jay in Washington as his fundraising consultant, I guess to say.
Sure, you can say that.
Yep. But I just want to remind everyone about Robert and his books, Nonprofit Management. Check it out. It's available on Amazon. A Guide for Nonprofit Leaders by Robert Montgomery. And The Book of Love by Robert Montgomery. My favorite quote is out of Nonprofit Management, and it is, to my good friend David, I love you like a play cousin. That was Robert's dedication to me. So, Robert, we're going to talk about fundraising. We're off to a good start, right? You want to tell us a little bit about your background in fundraising?
Sure. I started off in fundraising in 1999. I worked for United Way. That was my first job in fundraising.
Right.
I was hired as one of their fundraisers. I'm sure you guys know that United Way's bread and butter is workplace giving campaigns. So in Chicago, which is one of the largest markets in the country, I was given a batch of accounts, which were all for-profit organizations that wanted the United Way to come in and run their workplace giving campaigns. Very quickly, I was promoted to the CFC director. CFC is a combined federal campaign, which is the federal government's workplace giving campaign. And traditionally, they used to hire local United Ways to run their workplace giving campaigns the exact same way United Way runs their workplace campaign. So it was a huge endeavor, $5 million a year, 190 something federal agencies in Chicago, 65,000 federal employees, and all of them had to have the opportunity to get a book that had about 22,000 different nonprofits in it, and they would choose which nonprofits they wanted to give their money to on an annual basis. So that's how I got started. Okay. And then I morphed over to the vice president of development and marketing for Boys and Girls Club of Northwest Indiana, which was not a totally different experience, but it opened me up to way more different ways to fundraise than through workplace giving. I was introduced to the concept of major gift solicitation. I dibbed and dabbed in that at United Way because we did have a separate campaign that was called the Tocqueville Society, which was people who gave $10,000 or more. But there was a whole different department that took care of the Tocqueville Society than where I worked. But I did have to interact with the Tocqueville Society members at all of my accounts. But now I was thrust into a situation where I was the manager of our own major gift solicitation program, which was mainly our corporate giving. We did have some individual donors who gave a lot more money. And I know I'm dragging this out. You asked me a simple question and I'm giving you my whole history of fundraising.
Well,
but
I mean, it's good because, we're talking about fundraising, and I want my audience to know, particularly the professionals in political management, advising, and campaign management and advising, to know who you are.
Sure.
Because we have this relationship and this budding business partnership.
Long story short, the last 10 years of my I'm retired now. I retired in June, but the last 10 years of my career, I ran 3 different nonprofits, which helped me understand not only the fundraising side, but also the business of running I basically ran $1 million businesses, which made me wear a few hats. I was a fundraiser, professional fundraiser. I was CEO of a company, and I was also the manager of all of our programs, which is what we sold. If you look at it from a for-profit perspective, we were selling our programs to our funders, and those programs, depending on how successful they were, helped me to be successful or marginally successful as a fundraiser. So I asked to be on your show today, David, because I wanted to let your audience know my expertise in fundraising for nonprofits. But I had a few questions for you as to how do I transfer my knowledge to the political world, because I understand 100% why people give to nonprofits. There's several reasons, and most of them have something to do with the heart. Some of them have to do with taxes.
Correct.
But in the political world, it doesn't seem to be much heart, or I might be wrong. And there's definitely no tax advantages.
Yes.
And I might be wrong there too. But on the surface, when you give your money to a politician, you can't claim that on your taxes. But I guess in the back, if that politician has something to do with your taxes, they could help you get tax benefits in other ways.
Well,
To me, that seems a little under the table, because all of us, though they're supposed to represent all of us, why do they give preferential treatment to people who give them money, and when they have to represent people who don't give them money and don't get those same benefits? So I know that's not a part of our discussion today. That's just me on my soapbox. But I wanted to ask you a few questions on how do I started when I retired. I wrote this book with the idea that as an expert in nonprofit management, I started a consulting firm that helps nonprofits to fundraise, particularly in 2 specific areas: major gift solicitation, which is very, very, very non-prevalent in most nonprofits who have a annual budget of less than $1 million. Most of them do not have major gift solicitation programs. They just don't have the staff who is able to go out and have 12 to 20 different solicitation meetings every month as if they were salespeople. They just don't have that type of expertise at their organizations. And then the other one, which is really my foot in the door, is grant writing. Every nonprofit either has a grant writer on staff, or they pay a consultant like me to handle their grants for them. So that's what my consulting firm does now. But reaching out to you, I wanted to expand that to political fundraising. I just don't understand it the way I understand nonprofit fundraising. And I had a few questions for you to maybe you can enlighten me and your guests on the difference between the two.
Yes, I will try to answer your questions as best as I can based on my knowledge and experience. And I'd love to bring you along in your understanding of political fundraising.
Sure.
And of course, this will benefit not only our clientele, but also your business, my business, and our partnership within the community.
Sure.
So let's go.
Well, I see we already passed your 5-minute.
It's 5 minutes or thereof.
Okay.
They're used to it. The handful of politicos who do follow me, and actually, I hear back a lot of the things that I say in the community from, I guess, the handful of viewers who follow my personal professional journal and political advising and campaign management.
Great.
So what you got?
So why don't you start us off by, you're an expert on political fundraising. Why don't you help us understand what is the difference between political fundraising and nonprofit fundraising? Just for a little to help you out in your structure of your answer. Nonprofit fundraising is hinged on your ability to get the people who are giving you money to see or to fall in love with or to understand your philosophy on how you help the people that you're helping. That moves their heart, but also in every aspect, you have to move the mind as well. So you have to have a lot of statistics on how effective your program is in the community that you serve. What's the philosophy and when you're sitting in front of somebody and asking them for large sums of money? And when I say large sums of money, I mean 5 figures at least. What is your philosophy? What are you trying to accomplish in that meeting other than walking away with a check? How do you get them to give you $10,000, $100,000, $1 million?
Well, typically in campaign fundraising for individual clients, there are limitations that start there to what an individual can give to a individual campaign. So for most campaigns at the very local level, it's about $1,000. It goes up as you go into the hierarchy of state government and then of course federal government. So there's limitations. So at the local level where we do most of our work, the $1,000 limitation is there. And so going back to what you were saying, the heart and the mind, when you're talking to a potential donor, whether you have a relationship or not, it starts with establishing a relationship with a potential donor. Again, where we like to start is that inner circle of supporters that you automatically would have as a candidate, your friends and family that are close to you. And then you branch out into your networks, asking for support. And investment is what we like to call it here in J. Washington. Instead of a donation, an investment. It says a lot more about buy-in for that donor. It kind of goes towards that heart and mind that you were talking about, but it begins with having a relationship, because asking people for money is a very personal issue, not just for the client, our candidate, but also for the person that is being asked to donate or invest in the campaign. So it begins with relationships, regardless of the amount that you're asking. In political action committees, you can ask for more, and that's where businesses and individuals who can give more, invest more, will do so. And that is a little bit more, the expectation is there. You know, you said this PAC was created to support this candidate. And so you have professionals pretty much making that ask because it's supposed to be separate from the campaign. But at the campaign level, the individual candidate level, it's about establishing early those relationships within the community.
So you mentioned something, the heart and the mind. What compels, like if you sit down with somebody and ask them for $1,000, what, going into that meeting, you know how you want to move their heart and their mind, but what usually works? Like what actually moves their heart and their mind to give you $1,000 that really doesn't? And my next question is going to be, how does that benefit them?
Let's take this. Exactly. So this is the approach that we like to take in fundraising. And it's more than just taking this approach in fundraising, but in just what we do as far as political advising and campaign management. We use behavioral science techniques, philosophy, resources to tap into that part of the brain, that reptilian part of the brain that gets potential investors, volunteers, supporters, even voters to have some buy-in in the campaign. And so instead of saying a donor, we say investor. Instead of donation, investment. We want to tap into that part of the brain where it becomes an existential crisis for the investor to say, hey, I need this person in office because this person is not just talking the talk, but I strongly believe to an emotional state that this person needs to be in office to represent the best ideas from their community. So we like to tap into the emotional, that part of the brain that's like, okay, you know, if I don't do this, I'm going to be missing out on something.
So that's interesting you say that, because in fundraising for nonprofits, there's a philosophy of the role of the enemy. And the enemy is, let's say I work for a nonprofit that helps children to learn how to read. The enemy is illiteracy, and illiteracy causes maybe incarceration rates to go up. Maybe it causes what is that? Murder rates to increase. We can tie this problem that to some effects that the community would disrupt the community. So it becomes the enemy. What is the enemy in the political realm? Is it just the person that they're running against?
You know, for many campaigns, it's typically the opposing political affiliation or the opposing candidate. For a truly thought out campaign, a campaign that is constituent forward focus, it's about their kitchen table issues. So we want to tap into those particular kitchen table issues that matter to the vast majority of voters who will likely vote in a particular election, and also the vast majority of voters who are on the fringes, on the peripheral of the general demographic who would typically vote. We want to also reach out to those who are not as engaged, but want to be, are open to it, and just need a little bit more persuasion. And so my approach at JNW is to encourage our candidates, our associates, talking to our candidates, encourage them throughout the whole process. That we want to stay focused on the kitchen table issues that matter most, that would persuade voters, constituents, investors, supporters of all kinds to move beyond political affiliations and to invest in the campaign, the betterment of their community.
Sure. And so when you're sitting at that kitchen table, the ROI, the return of investment, it makes sense in the nonprofit world, because my return on investment is going to be immediate. I'm going to get a tax break for this. If I do it through my business, then that $1,000 can be that's $1,000 I don't have to pay taxes on. Correct. On top of that, let's say I'm giving to Boys and Girls Club and I own a tire shop. And usually when kids get out of school, that's when vandalism spikes at my tire shop. I'm closing my business at that point, but once it's closed, kids break in and steal some of my tires. If I invest in Boys and Girls Club, maybe some of those kids won't be out on the street stealing tires. They'll be in Boys and Girls Club. So that makes sense. Return on investment for my $1,000. I can see that. If I give a politician $1,000, how do I monetize my return on investment? I don't get a tax break. I don't know if this person is going to, politicians have a track record of saying one thing before the election and then doing something after the election. So how do I calculate my return on investment? So
our approach is, from the example that you're using as far as being a business owner, first identifying, is there a role for government in this particular situation? And if there is a role for government, how can we partner with you as a business owner in your community and other business owners who could be affected by the same issue? What would be the least intrusive action to address the matter, where everyone is safe, where everyone continues to be productive, and of course prevent this issue from going? So what can we do as government, or the candidate as a government official, as an elected, in the least intrusive manner, deal with this problem, mitigate the issues, so that one, Government is not solving everything. There's community input. So we want to have that conversation with the community, and we want to address the issue immediately in the safe and productive manner. We don't want police rushing in and, just, like gangbusters. No. But at the same time, we just don't want the kids to, continue to do what they're doing. So we want to determine if there's a role for the elected, for the government to partner with the community to address that particular issue. Have a plan. I can't stand so many meetings upon meetings upon meetings. Have a plan immediately to go into the community, have that conversation, and then enact some type of solution.
Okay. So on that note, what you're telling me is that if I'm a business owner and I want kids to stop vandalizing my shop after hours, or if I run a different type of business and I don't like the fact that there's certain people moving into this area, I can buy a politician. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because if
Have a relationship with a politician.
I get that, but if I don't give this politician money, or if I gave the person money who was running and then the other person won, I don't have that same relationship with this person, but I'm still one of their constituents. Are you saying that because I gave their opponent money, I don't have any access to them now?
No. Again, it goes back to accountability. Whether the candidate that you invested in wins or loses, you still, as a business owner, have some responsibility in the community. If your business is where you live, in the district that you are supporting the candidate, and sometimes that's the case, you want to hold that elected accountable after the election. There are meetings, there are advisory boards, there are opportunities at public comment at these meetings that are open to the public to give your opinion as to what or what not that particular elected official, even before an election, is doing. So it's holding people accountable. You can write, you can call, you can message, you can visit your electeds. They work for the community. It's not the other way around. And therefore, you pay taxes as a voter and as a business owner. You want the return on the investment, the ROI on that investment in your taxes. So you want not just, the operating, operable sewer line or the electricity delivered, but you also want your elected officials to be accountable. And you hold them accountable.
Great. Well, walk me through the process. Let's say I'm I want to run for the county commission. This is Orange County?
Orange County, Florida, yes.
And I want to run as a commissioner. First of all, how much money do I really need to have to run an effective campaign? And then what are the steps? Like, how do you go about raising that number of dollars? And how much time does that take?
Right. So to run an effective strategy, that's what I call it. Because running a campaign is a completely different mindset. There are my peers in the community who say, oh, okay, we're running a campaign. Well, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and this is how much it's going to cost. Well, doing X, Y, and Z without a strategy is throwing money into the wind. You're just throwing money. Running an effective strategy means that there is careful thought about what your constituents want. So again, you have that relationship. There's that relationship with your constituency, businesses, individuals, so forth, and so other government officials. You establish what their needs are, their kitchen table issues. And so as a candidate, I do my assessment. And I do my assessment in regards to the viability of a candidate's success in the strategy that we will establish for them. Not in the election that they're running for, but in the strategy that we will create for them for a particular election. And as far as fundraising, there's 3 pillars that I put my candidates in during our assessment. One, the lower tier would be, or let's say tier 3, would be the fresh off the street, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed advocate, activist, candidate who may be a great HOA president. However, their sphere of influence, their network is very limited, and their experience is incredibly limited as far as public service or running for office. And so they will need a lot of reality checking and also a lot of work to get them to be candidate worthy. Then there's the second tier. That is typically your candidate who's run before but had not been successful, or it's a candidate who has won, is running for reelection or another election. However, the circumstances of their first election needed a little bit more refining as far as their approach towards fundraising or voter outreach and so forth and so on, and bringing everyone to the present. Because what happened 4 years ago or 2 years ago or 8 years ago is completely than what's happening now. Incorporating new tools. So it's a little bit more education, but you have a more workable candidate. And then the number one tier is the individual who isn't elected or past elected, who knows the strategies, know how to run for office, know what they need to do to raise money, and they just need that support.
Okay, but walk me through, how do you fundraise for these people? How do you, what's the process for raising, let's say they need to raise $25,000.
Okay.
How do they go from $0 in the bank to $25,000 in the bank? And how long does that take?
Oh boy, it's the whole campaign. From the time that campaign fundraising legally ends, that's like the day of the election, you're always fundraising as a candidate. Unfortunately, that's just how it is.
Sure.
And that's their main job as a candidate. Fundraise, kiss babies. Kiss babies, fundraising. When I say kiss babies, that means shake hands, meet the public, your voters. Of course, go to events where you see other, influencers, high profile individuals in the community. But in essence, you're actually working more with your constituency that matter in your election. So I sit down and said, okay, depending on the level of candidate and where they're at as far as their fundraising history, it's like, okay, let's talk about your relationships. And when we do it, it's expensive because we have a proven record of successful fundraising. We incorporate a digital campaign in it, but that's a different story. But basically, you sit down and you ask, let's look at your phone. Let's open up your contacts and let's talk to everyone that is in your phone book. Here's a script that the candidate needs to embrace, make it personal to them. We craft one that is personal to the potential investor in the campaign and call them and just be straightforward. And it's tedious. Sometimes it's embarrassing. However, you have to do the work of the candidate. So it begins first with getting comfortable with your contacts in your phone book and talking to those family members, which typically they already have, those close associates of yours, friends that you rely on who've been there for the get-go. And a lot of times, if there's no monetary investment, then ask for, can you at least volunteer or in kind, a service or a campaign and things like that, or hold a fundraiser for me. You don't want to hang up the phone thinking that there was no outcome. You want each person on the phone to end the conversation knowing that there is some investment in the campaign. So it starts with talking to people that you already have a relationship. And when you get out, and I see as these circles within circles, as you get outside of your networks to the public, whether they're voters or donors from a donation list, you craft that message. We'll craft that message to assist our client and talking to those particular individuals who are specifically identified for issues that would that the candidate or campaign is campaigning on
Mhm.
or aligned with, matching with potential voters in businesses, and craft that message so that it resonates with that particular individual, because there's no relationship. And sometimes you have to continue the phone calls, maybe a direct message, on the phone. A lot of times, with the technology that we have, all my calls that are not in my contacts and just shows up as a number, they go into spam, whether
Mhm.
it's a message or a phone call. So we have to get around the new technology. We do digital. We send digital impressions to donors, potential investors, before our client starts their outreach, so that the name, the logo, the campaign colors are familiar to the potential investor. So when we do make contact, they're like, yeah, it's something familiar about this person that's calling me. Oh, it's because they've received digital impressions from the campaign to help help our client become recognizable
Mhm.
to the potential investor. And there's other ways. I like, we're digital first.
Great. Well, those are all the questions I have for you today.
Oh wow.
I know that we're like way over time.
It's okay. This is a special edition, special episode of Countertop Politics. This is my very first guest on this show. My inner world of political management and advising and consulting. So it was my pleasure having you interview me about fundraising. And again, Robert Montgomery of Rosemoor LLC.
Mhm.
He and J&W, Rosemoor and J&W are partnering to provide fundraising services for not just our political clients, but for, any of our clients in the nonprofit world, in the political world. So well, Robert, do you have any final words?
I think I've said all I wanted to say. Go buy the book.
Yes, please.
I'm not only
Nonprofit
a
manager.
client, I'm the player president, but go out and get the Book of Love. I figured out love. I figured out how love works. This explains it through my experiences, and kind of gives you an idea of when you fall in love, what is actually happening to you. So
Yeah, excellent. If you truly believe that this content is helpful in any manner and that you enjoy it, and thank you to our subscribers to this particular podcast and to all of our entities, whether it's From the Margins with Jimmy Alfont, the Fernandez Legacy with Mildred Fernandez, Ground Zero Florida. And then there's the David Washington Show, of course, my opinions, and Countertop Politics. Please share this with family, friends, those influencers in the wild that candidates, and electeds who could benefit from our content. We really, really appreciate it. Again, like, share for the algorithm. I love the comments, the engagement. I love the engagement, and that's what's important. So please feel free to comment, and let's keep it classy. Let's keep it tactful and respectful. And please comment across all of our entities, across all of our socials. So this is Countertop Politics. Really appreciate you. God bless. I love you. Thank you, Robert.
thank you.
We'll see you the next time, everyone. Take care. Bye.